what if we don't get a parade anymore? What if parades, like, what if this is Disney's moment? Because, they closed Main Street Electrical Parade
Uh-huh.
and they're moving it over to California.
Hmm.
There's no announcement for what's coming afterwards for
Right.
Disney World. So what if this is like their Apple moment where they're like getting rid of headphones? They're just like, no, you don't need parades. Parades are so last millennium. We're just going to do no more parades.
And do what in its place?
Flash mobs all along Main Street.
That's a parade.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Disneyland versus Disney World, the series that everybody kept asking us to bring back, even though our memories are starting to fail us. So I was thinking about it. Well, obviously, if you've never seen the show before, the premise is basically what the title is. We take a ride from Disney World and a ride from Disneyland, and we put them head to head, talk about how they're the same, how they're different, which one we like better, and then we throw it to you guys to tell us how we're wrong. I'm sort of forgetting. It's been over a year since our trip to Disneyland.
Yeah, it really has been.
But I was able to think of like a couple that I can still remember vividly enough that I feel like we can fairly compare the two. Mm-hmm. And this one is one that people have asked for. It is, I think, the most unfair comparison we can do between these two parks. But people have asked for it, and I'm willing to talk about it.
Yep.
And that is the Main Street Electrical Parade and Paint the Night from Disneyland. Obviously, now they're all sort of Paint the Night's going away, and we don't know when it's coming back. Main Street Electrical Parade's gone away. It's going to Disneyland. But let's talk about these parades and which one we like better.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? You, I feel like, are a bigger fan of the Main Street Electrical Parade than I ever was.
Well, because of nostalgia reasons.
Sure.
Like, that's my honest answer. When we went in the 80s, my dad did the whole rent a huge video camera that was like on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. And he filmed our whole trip. And as I grew up, I was really obsessed with watching that trip because we didn't go again until I was like 10 or 11. So in that in-between time, I would just watch that all the time. And one of the things he recorded in full, in typical dad fashion, was the Main Street Electrical Parade. And there's a point where Cinderella waves right at me that my mom used to always be like, oh, like that made me feel so good when that happened. So like there's a lot of like memories around it, which is part of the reason why I loved it so much. And I used to obsessively watch those videos and the music would play. And I'm pretty sure I drove my parents absolutely crazy every time I watched it because they would hear that loop and they'd be like, oh God, she's watching it again. And so obviously it went away for a while, and the year that it came back to Disney World,
just glossed over Spectro Magic completely. A blip in history, the footnote of history.
At all.
I honestly, I might offend people when I say this. I really couldn't tell the difference when I was younger. They were both virtually the same thing to me.
They're pretty different.
The music's different, but I felt like it was mostly the same.
I didn't like the creepy people in the beginning with the masks. I wasn't a fan of that. That's a whole other story. But basically when it came back, I guess I was, what was the year that it came back?
It came back a couple of times, actually, I believe. So I know it came back after 2000, but I believe it was like mid to late 90s it had a sprint too.
It was after 2000.
It's a very messy history of it coming back, going away, coming back.
It came back in my early 20s. I think that was when it came back, and they said it was another short run, and then it ended up running until this year.
Over a decade, yeah.
And so for me, because of the nostalgia of it, I was actually on a trip with you. So I think that was 2007.
Yeah. No, that was 2012. Nope, 2000. I don't remember. These years, they just all become a blur.
Guys,
the one where we were with Lore. I remember we went on Astro Orbiter and you wanted to go see the...
I was like, I need to see this. I need to see this, Rob. Sorry, go do your thing. Bye.
Right.
And I went to watch it and was like already pretty much an adult by then and stood there and cried. I cried watching the parade because it had such a huge... influence on my childhood. So that's really where the love comes from. It's not even from like a technical standpoint and like comparisons to other parades. I guess it is not as I don't know, impressive as Paint the Night for sure because it's so old. It's just there was a lot of nostalgia and emotion that made me really, really love that parade. And they did change it actually. Like if you look at the one from the 80s and the one that they recently had, there are some changes to some floats and to some of the music. So there were updates, but yeah,
I cry when I see the parade, but for totally different reasons.
Shut up.
It's my favorite thing to harp on is that parade. But I can understand. I mean, as far as like classic Disney history goes, this was like one of the original parades that has managed to last this long, which is, I want to say, impressive, if not for the fact that I assume they're just like, well, we don't have anything better, so just keep it going another year.
I mean, I imagine making a whole new parade is very expensive, so
I would guess that as well. But it sounds like after it's run at Disneyland, it is really for reals gone for good. And I think that's because we have now seen a better replacement in the form of Paint the Night. Now, this is weird. We usually wait until the end to make our calls, but it sounds like you're in camp Main Street Electrical Parade, and I am in the Paint the Night camp. You're not?
No, I'm definitely in Paint the Night camp.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about Paint the Night, the cooler, better, newer parade over at Disneyland. Obviously, it's an unfair comparison to make. One of them was designed in the 70s. The other one was designed, last year?
Right.
So it is more modern. And I think it's also fair to say that without the Main Street Electrical Parade, Paint the Night likely wouldn't exist. It is so clearly inspired by the Main Street. The music, the lights. It is the spiritual successor to the Main Street Electrical Parade. And it is fantastic because if you've never seen it, first of all, I know some people are hard against watching things on YouTube. They want to experience it in person. But if you've never been to Disneyland, you've never seen Paint the Night, do yourself a favor, go watch it on YouTube. Yeah. It's
find
such
an
a good
HD
parade. Oh, it's
video
great.
Of it. Yeah.
It is. I'm not a big parade person. In the past, Spectra Magic and the Main Street Electrical Parade, and you had things like the day parades, like Toy Story, the Aladdin one. They liked them, but I didn't care. After seeing a parade once, I never really needed to see it again. I was not a parade guy at all. And I was in the same boat as you, as when Keith was sort of insisting that we get good seats for Paint the Night when we were in Disney. I was just I don't see, it's just a parade. What's the big deal? And total 180, I understand it now. That parade is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, like we said, very similar to the electrical parade. It is super colorful, very vibrant. You've got different floats. Obviously, it works in a lot more newer Disney properties. You got a lot of Pixar representation through Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., and Cars, which is big over there because of Cars Land and Frozen, going into newer Disney animated films. But for me, I think what really makes the parade memorable, aside from just the visuals of all those colors and lights, is the music. Is such a step up from the Main Street Electrical
Parade. But
Parade.
What's wonderful about it is that it's still an homage to the Main Street Electrical Parade. The tune is in the parade.
Yeah.
And
right at the beginning.
That throughout the whole parade, they keep going back into the Main Street Electrical Parade song. And that was when Keith said to me, Christine, I know how much you love Main Street Electrical Parade. You need to sit front row for this. And I didn't understand why. But, that was why. Because it really is, like you said, the spiritual successor. And it's still, there's so much that it, goes back to the Main Street Electrical Parade for, that you can tell that that, like you said, if it wasn't for that, this wouldn't exist. So they're really acknowledging that in it. And the first moment I heard the tune in the music, I just went into little kid mode. My jaw dropped, and I was like, "This is amazing." But then they also pull in the song from Wreck-It Ralph, though change the lyrics a little bit, and then just how each section has such a strong musical style. And they've always done that, but I feel it's even more so here. Honestly, I think the Cars section's music is the best.
Yes.
Music.
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite part.
So badass. And then when you have those
dancing car robots.
So cool.
I know. Cool. It's my favorite part of the parade. I think the parade stands as a good example as to why parades shouldn't last that long, because I love the music, but at the same time I acknowledge that in 15 years we might listen to that music and go, wow, way to be dated. Like, you know, this is super old. So, and that's what I think of the Main Street Electrical Parade when I see it today is like, well, this is a relic of the 70s, and you can tell. So I feel like as good as I think Paint the Night is, I don't think it should last nearly as long as the Main Street Electrical Parade. It needs to have a shelf life. You need to update these things. And I think that's part of what makes a parade good, is that it's sort of made for the era that it's within, not just being super old.
Also, side note, it makes me happy to see that Belle is really up there in that parade, because I feel like, yes, she's a huge princess for a lot of people, but I feel like she gets a little shafted in like parades and stuff.
Do you think it's because they knew they would be doing a live action Beauty and the Beast, and so she'd be sort of pushed back into the spotlight soon?
Possible. I mean, who knows? They plan things so far ahead that maybe they did know. But yeah, I remember seeing her, and again, little kid mode. It was just like, holy crap, like her dress is just amazing. Like the way they decided to style that, it's part of the float. And the way the music changes for Beauty and the Beast, but it's still kind of like dancey. I don't know. It was great. I love that whole section too. It's probably my second favorite section, with all the dancers and those like beautiful like Renaissance dresses.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll throw out there before we make our final decision, even though I think we already have, is just when I see parades end at Disney, I always see this sort of same instance where you've got the people with like the big stick that's like, don't move forward, and everyone just sort of trudging behind it to get to their next ride. And when we saw Paint the Night for the second time, when we were back in Disneyland in the evening, and we were going to the Matterhorn, we followed along with that group that normally is shuffling, and everyone was just dancing. Like, it was like a dance party. Yeah, it was like a dance party just following the parade. Like, they just didn't want it to end. And that was something I had never seen at Disney before. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is my new favorite parade of all time. And so I think we're both firmly in the Paint the Night camp. I think this might spark a Disney Civil War. I feel like of all the things you compare between the two parks, this one has been the most heated when all the news has been dropping about parades moving around. So,
but like, understand this from a person who loves Main Street Electrical Parade. Like I understand that you never really liked it. Yeah. But like, guys, it's time to pass the mantle onto something that is
to move on to new things.
And it still has the spirit of the Main Street Electrical Parade in it. And so that's why I'm so welcoming to it, because I'm just like, like this is still, it's still that kind of magic. So
in any case, we want to hear what you think about these parades. You can weigh in on which is your favorite below in the comments, or you could go ahead and you can let us know on Twitter. I'm at Rob Plays. Christine?
I'm at Ivy Winter YT.
And if you want to see more Disney content, you could hit that subscribe button. I do 3 Disney videos a week. And you could also check out Christine's channel, which is
Ivy Winter.
And if you want even more Disney content, we do a weekly Disney podcast called the Tomorrowland Transit Authorities. You can find the link in the description below, or you can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or on the website, ttapodcast.com. And just as a note, I think I have like 1 or 2 more of these listed out that I think we can fairly do. But beyond that, until we get back to Disneyland so that we can have like a fresh memory of these attractions, we're probably going to hold off on the Disney World versus Disneyland. I love this series, but we need to be fair between the two parks, and that means we have to go back. So,
right, that's what I say. I think this just means we start planning the next trip.
Yeah, that's already one step ahead of you. I can't wait to do Tower of Terror versus Guardians of the Galaxy. I know.
Everyone's gonna hate you.
Oh, they're gonna hate me so much.
0 subscribers.
Well, if there's one reason to lose them all, I guess that's it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And today we're going to take a look at the Tower of Terror. So it's in, obviously, Hollywood Studios over in Florida, and it is in Disney's California Adventure over in California, and we've rode both. Talk a bit about your Disneyland experience, Christine.